Welcome to the plants section of our notes. So the first thing I want to talk about is photosynthesis. We need to talk about how these plants are getting their food, and this is something we have learned before, so hopefully this is a review. The first thing we want to do is get down that equation or that chemical formula. So there are three things that we know plants need. We know they need sunlight, we know they need water, and we know they need carbon dioxide. So let's add them to our equation. And when these three things enter the chloroplast, oxygen and sugar are released, and it is released in the form of glucose. So it's a type of sugar. Now I want to draw that into the leaf because seeing it in the equation form is all well and good, but I want you to realize that these three things are going into the plant, and the sugar and oxygen are being made by the plant. So the sugar is going to sometimes leave the leaf. It's not going to leave the whole plant. Maybe it goes to the roots. Maybe it goes to the stem or the flower or wherever. And then off to the left, you can see that this is all happening in the chloroplast. Throwback to our cells unit, because it is important to remember it all happens in the chloroplast. It's the only reason plants are able to do photosynthesis. There are two big groups of plants. Our first big group is called non-vascular. So non-vascular plants do not have tubes that move water and nutrients up and down the plant. So the opposite of non-vascular is going to be the vascular plants. So those are going to be our group 2. Those plants have tubes that carry nutrients and water through the plant. So no tubes, non-vascular. Tubes, vascular. We're going to start talking about the non-vascular plants first because they're simpler plants. They're smaller because they don't have those tubes. So flip to the next page in your packet and let's get started talking about these non-vascular plants. I want to start with a couple characteristics that are true of all non-vascular plants. They are going to be small, they're going to be simple, and they do not have a vascular system. And in parentheses, it says xylem and phloem because later this unit we will learn that xylem and phloem are the names of those tubes. All right, let's keep moving. Non-vascular plants are going to live in moist and damp places because they don't have tubes that carry water through the plant. So they have to just be able to absorb the water and use it right away, and absorb the water and use it right away. Now to absorb this water, they have structures called rhizoids. These rhizoids are hair-like structures that are going to hold the plant in the ground. So under a microscope, this is what a rhizoid looks like. They're shorter. They're not really roots. They're rhizoids. If you were to pull a non-vascular plant out of the ground, this is what you would see, these tiny little hair structures. Our clicked too quick. Our non-vascular plants reproduce using spores, not seeds. We've heard spores before in our fungus unit. Well, here they are again. Here is a picture of a moss plant releasing the spores into the air. We have 3 examples of non-vascular plants. Our first example is moss, that green, slippery, wet plant that is found all over rocks and trees and all of that. They're rootless plants, right? They have those rhizoids. They have leaf-type structures that are in a spiral around the stem. Our second type of non-vascular plant is a liverwort. And a liverwort is a simple rootless, right? They have those rhizoids. It's a simple rootless plant with or without stems and leaves. So you can see on the right this picture You can see that one has a stem and leaves. The one on the left just has leaves. It doesn't have a stem. It's just growing out and wide. They're tricky to find, but you can find them. And our last example of a non-vascular plant is a hornwort. And a hornwort, they're going to grow in wet and damp soils. They're going to grow on rocks. You don't tend to see them around here. You're going to see them more in the southern states and even more tropical, so get even closer to the equator. They need very hot, very damp places. They're called hornworts because they have that elongated horn-like structure, so those spiky things, and they are actually leaf-like projections, so they're like leaf-like spikes, and a flattened green leafy bottom. Okay. That's all I have about non-vascular plants. Make sure your notes are completed,